Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Ruggiero, Vice President of Communications for Quilts Incorporated. And one of the most exciting exhibits we're going to have, and one of my personal favorites at the Long Beach show, is a celebration of color. Now, this is an annual judge show where we had about 70 entrants this year, and we had some big prizes given away, a $1,000 Best of Show prize, and $500 each in the art, traditional, and modern categories. It was all generously sponsored by equilter.com. And I have with me today Luana Rubin of equilter.com. So welcome, Luana.
Hi, Bob. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. It's I love these Zoom interviews. You really get a chance to see people.
I know, it's awesome.
Great. Well, I guess the first question I have for you is tell me a little bit why you wanted to sponsor this exhibit. You repeated from last year, and what made you feel so close to a celebration of color?
Hmm. Well, in addition to being a retailer, of course, I'm a quilt artist and a textile designer and a painter, and my background is in the garment and textile industries. So I've been working with color all of my career, all of my professional life. And I think it's the energy, the buzz, the juice that just keeps me going. And, every day when I come to work, it's not work. It's just like I'm going to my living room to do something really fun. And color is just my favorite topic. So when I had the opportunity to do this starting last year, I said, yeah, that is a perfect fit for us. And you very kindly have put our rainbow logo behind you there. So I thank you for that. But for those of you who are familiar with our company, we've always been a company for people who are not afraid of color. And of course, this is an exhibit for quilt makers who are not afraid of color. And it really is a celebration of my favorite topic. So thank you for inviting me to sponsor this. It's great.
No, thank you for sponsoring. So with quilting, we always talk a lot about, needlework and cutting fabric and skills in that way. But talk a little bit to me about why color and the use of color not only is so important to quilting, but can really transform a quilt from something maybe normal to something really spectacular just in the choice of the color.
Right. Well, I think color is something that's very personal. It's very emotional. I personally feel that color has a healing quality. Some people use color in their living space, which of course can include quilts, to bring a certain feeling or restfulness, but it can also energize. And we do that with our artwork and our quilts and our fabric too. We may have a really calm palette where we add a couple complementary colors that really zing when they're put next to each other, or we may create a palette of analogous colors that all kind of flow into each other. So it's a feeling, isn't it? I mean, when you look at a piece, you get a particular feeling, and I really think that we're drawn to pieces. Like when you go to a show and you see a crowd of people gathering around a quilt, and you always wonder, well, what is it that pulled them in? Yeah, often it is the incredible stitching and applique and technical wizardry, but often it's the colors, and people don't always realize exactly what it is that's drawing them in, but they see it from a distance, they see those colors vibrating, and they just have to come over and kind of stand in the presence of that. And the great thing is then they take that home with them and it inspires their next quilt. So I feel that color is very inspirational. And of course, after what we've all gone through the last few years, I think that's really important to inspire and support each other with color.
Right. And I also think it's just so important to see the color in person. I mean, before all of our shows, obviously I see photos of all the quilts that are on display, but when I actually see them on display at the show, amazing, the color. Again, these are things
Yeah.
that really pop out in person that a photo doesn't always do so much justice to. So I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to seeing all of the quilts in this exhibit, all the finalists and the winners, both at the Long Beach show and in the Houston show. So
Right.
I've known Luana, I've known you for a long time, and I've always, kind of thought of you as the queen of color. So I know you're an
Oh,
expert
thank
in
you.
this kind of area. So kind of look into your crystal ball there and tell me what you think the color trends or the color interests are going to
Mhm.
be maybe for the next year or so.
Sure. Well, I don't think we'll talk about the color of the year because that can be kind of a gimmicky thing. I mean, it's fun and exciting when those colors are announced for sure. I have noticed that the colors of the year, both from in our industry, like the Kaufman color of the year, but also the Pantone color of the year, have been very bright and vibrant. And again, I think that really speaks to what we need, what we're drawn to. It's interesting. I watch trends when I go to shows, and of course I go to shows all over the world and I see different color trends in different areas. But I think the US shows are pretty consistent in using bright color. And so the colors that I'm seeing are colors that are very homey and nurturing and warm. So I see colors like a golden yellow that you might think of as a honey yellow, a kind of a yellow green that's maybe the color of green growing things, as opposed to, if you live in a drought state like I do here in Colorado, much of the year things are kind of dried out and not very colorful. So we're drawn to colors of life and warmth and richness. And I think a lot of times when I look at colors now, I think of food colors, so we might think of colors like a pear green or a wasabi green, that's a little brighter, or like I said, a honey gold, but also we might have kind of a maize or corn gold, right? And also in the cool area, I think not having a perfect amethyst purple, but a purple that's either a little warm like a plum color or a little cool like a lilac or French blue color. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Those colors that are not just like in your face. I'm purple, I'm yellow, I'm emerald green, but instead they're kind of nuanced, but still very warm, nurturing, comforting, like you want to wrap yourself in it. Of course, you could literally make a quilt out of using those colors. You might not make the whole thing honey gold, but you might use it as an accent color. More and more, though, I see more people wearing clothes and making quilts that have that as a main color. It happens to be very popular in Europe, and it's parallel to a trend that I've seen with honeybees and honeycombs and pollinators and, issues about climate change and endangered pollinators and things like that. So I think maybe it's a subconscious connection for most people, but that is a trend, not only in color, but also in motifs, in quilts and fabrics that we see that's really connected to nature around us. So, we live these disconnected lives, we're looking at our phones and we're on our computers and so on. And there's like a thirst or a hunger to reconnect with nature. Does that make sense?
No, that's on the mark. When you mentioned the wasabi green fabric, my mouth got hot immediately because I cannot eat those.
Okay.
So let me wipe that up a little.
Sorry about that, Bob.
All right. Well, I guess my last question is tell me a little bit bring us up to date about what's going on with equilter.com and also with your other activities.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to share a couple things with you. Well, as I think many of you know, certainly our customers know, we have been giving 2% of all sales to charity, to nonprofits, 24 years now. And we are almost to $2 million that we have raised. Now, a percentage of that includes supporting nonprofit arts, but a lot of it goes to our list of 7 charities, such as Doctors Without Borders and breast cancer. I think we're up to $330,000 that we've raised for breast cancer research, which of course is a favorite among many of our customers. Mission of Love, that's working in Pine Ridge and working with the Mayan people in Guatemala and Mexico. So anyway, there's a list of all of the charities, the main 7 charities that we support, but there is an 8th choice, which is use the money where it's best used or most needed. So that extra money with that 8th choice has allowed us to work with our partners and send a container with 20,000 pounds full of rice to Ukrainian refugees in Poland, working with
Wow.
Mission of Love. And in that same container, we had 1,000 donated quilts that went to refugees. Oops, sorry, a little wobbly there. We also have been working with the community of Uvalde, and today, as you and I are recording this, I realize people will see this later, but yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of what happened in Uvalde. And we've been working with a retired teacher there, and she is collecting and distributing donated comfort quilts to not just the children and the school, but the entire community. So, we have projects like that. We have now distributed, you lose track after a while, but I know it's more than 18,000 quilts that we have collected and distributed through our partners. And I think the most important thing about that is that people feel they can trust us to make sure that those quilts will be given to the people most in need. Because you don't want them to end up stacked up in a warehouse and getting moldy and getting thrown out, or being handed out to the nearest person who walks by and says, "Oh yeah, I'd like a free quilt," because the quilters make them with such heart. It's for many people who are giving a quilt for the very first time, they've been touched very deeply by another community's loss, and they just feel like, I want to do something. I want to help those refugees, or, whatever the topic is. And they send that quilt off, and they may never hear back from the person that gets it, but maybe they put a little message on the back, who made it, and maybe some words of encouragement. And I have seen the people who receive these donated quilts, and it just means everything to them. I can't even put into words. It's amazing to experience that. So I encourage people who are moved to give in that way to follow through on that. I think Bob, that I have become an activist on topics of climate change and, conservation and also human rights. And so I have been asked to come and start speaking. I just spoke at an event in France, and this weekend I'm speaking at Quilt National on the topic of art and activism. And I have been making quilts that are about these topics, about endangered species and climate change and so on. And I'm just trying to share information with other artists who are interested in making art quilts on this topic. So that's something that I'm pursuing. I'm collaborating with nonprofits such as the Endangered Species Coalition and the Wild Foundation. And we'll see where that goes. But I'm trying to create opportunities for other textile artists to create art, because a lot of us are frustrated about what's going on in the world today, to create art, to express that, and to share it with others. And hopefully when other people see that, maybe their heart will be touched and they will give it some thought. How can I get involved with also helping to make the world a better place? Which I think is what quilters want anyway, right? Quilters are such good-hearted people.
Well, Luana, it sounds like you're not busy at all, so you really need to step up your activities because you've obviously got a lot of time to fill.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, Luana, thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you for sponsoring. I want to remind everybody you can see all of the finalists and the winners of A Celebration of Color. It'll be on display at the Long Beach Quilt Festival, July 6th through 8th this year in Long Beach, California. We'll also have them on display in Houston, November 2nd through 5th this year. So there will be a explosion of color on the show floor. And Luana, thank you again for joining us, and thank you for your sponsorship.
And congratulations to all of the winners and all the participants. Thank you, Bob. Take care.